doctor.
Lang is her doctor. Y'all treat all your patients like this or just the black ones?
Whoever is the first patient for you. Last name is Jones. She's G3P2. I'm not sure when her due date is.
Her due date is the 10th.
I think her due date's the 10th.
She had 3 pregnancies, 2 babies at home. I bet y'all listen next time. When you found out you was delivering at this hospital, your ass should have changed doctors.
Thank you.
Everybody say how they treat people here.
Thank you.
Ma'am,
Yes.
are you able to call the anesthesiologist?
Someone is coming to take you to labor and delivery.
That's not what I asked.
I cannot, no.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So do you know what scares me the most? Black women can literally be dying and somehow some people still can't find a sense of urgency, right? This story is a perfect example, and honestly it's heartbreaking, right? So a pregnant black woman was literally crowning, not in early labor, you guys, not even mild contractions. She was crowning, and her mom is obviously panicking. She's screaming in pain. Her water is already broken, and the registered nurse on duty, LaChrista Vaughn, a whole medical professional, was acting like this woman just walked in to ask for a parking ticket, right? No urgency, no empathy, no common sense, just blank stares and unnecessary questions that could have been asked later or asked to the mother who was literally right there. And here's the part that makes my stomach drop. That baby came 12 minutes after she sat in that chair. 12. Which means this woman was basically being ignored for almost 30 minutes while she was already in a medical emergency. Black women beg for help and still get treated like they're exaggerating, like their pain isn't real, like their bodies aren't telling the truth. And people try to tell us it's not about race, but come on. Right? Because magically, this same nurse who has, been seen in another video is acting the same nonchalant way with another black patient, right? A patient who was having a seizure. And, she just looked like she was waiting for her shift to end. It's crazy. I don't want to say too much. Let's get into these videos and we'll be back with some commentary. Credit goes to all original creators. Thank you so much for tapping in when you saw this. Let's watch and we'll be back. Also, quick disclaimer, this is not for intended for bullying or any kind of violence. This is just to create awareness. But yeah, let's watch these videos and we'll be back.
So let's talk about being black while sick. Let's talk about being black while needing emergency medical care. Let's talk about being a black woman needing emergency medical care. The young woman in labor who was African American at the Dallas Regional Medical Center, in active labor, on her hands and knees in a wheelchair, which kudos says, I'd have fallen and wouldn't have been able to get back up. So like that, while in active labor, on hands and knees, screaming in pain, justifiably so. She's in, again, active labor. And this bitch with a skin tone and hair color that looks like mine is just as cold as the snow miser. This lady, in the midst of all this bullshit that she's being put through, politely, mind you, politely asks if she can see an anesthesiologist. Is the anesthesiologist on his way? I'm assuming either for a shot of pain medication, some Stadol, or an epidural. Either way, she politely asked. And this lady twisted around in them little swivel chairs that they had, swung around in that chair and goes, I can't help you. Bitch, get a new job. Now, look, I understand the stress and the bullshit that medical professionals go through. I do. I was in nursing school clear up to my clinical rotation. Seen it, done it, understand. I do. But that woman's water had broken. She was in active labor.
This is a registered nurse named LaCrista Vaughn, and she sat here with complete disregard for a woman in active labor, screaming in pain, asking for help. And she responds to her and says, I cannot help you. And this isn't even the first time she's been caught on camera with, in my opinion, a complete disregard for her patients. A Black trans man came in from having seizures, and according to him, he was treated like he was on substances. Which, by the way, even if someone was, they still deserve to be cared for. The woman that she treated this way, a Black woman who is already at a higher risk, she ended up delivering her baby 12 minutes after getting out of triage. Her baby had their first bowel movement while still inside of her. However, we have an update that they are doing well physically. You can't tell me as a nurse that she is not aware of the statistics of Black women in healthcare. To look at her in the eyes and say that I can't help you. And for anyone who's ever had a baby, you know how horrible this type of pain is. And I guess the hospital, allegedly in my opinion, doesn't like all this attention because they shut down their comments. I found this post very concerning where she says, any suggestions on switching specialties, looking at moving from ER to labor and delivery? Are there any open residencies in DFW? Thank God she didn't find an open residency or she changed her mind, because she, in my opinion, shouldn't be in labor and delivery, the ER, or any type of job that involved any type of care for human life. Giving birth to your baby should be a magical, safe experience where doctors and nurses believe you and they treat you with dignity and care. This mother should be able to go home and enjoy being with her baby and have walked away feeling safe, and they got the exact opposite. For what reason? I would love to hear in her words why she treated her that way. And lastly, for anyone who believes that there isn't racism in the medical field because maybe you're a nurse and you would never do that, if you can see a video like this and not see that this is happening, you're part of the problem.
Stop going into healthcare if you cannot show compassion for all people. At the Dallas Regional Medical Center in Texas, which is extremely confusing because they offer labor and delivery at the hospital, and they say on their websites they pride themselves in compassion and comfortable care for mothers. But is the compassion in the fucking room with us? Now, if you've ever given birth and you know that pressure you feel in your ass, that's the body's final warning. And the lack of urgency in the fucking room was loud. Surely they should know that this could be extremely dangerous. Delaying care like that puts both the baby and the mother in extreme risk. Loss of oxygen, emergency delivery, hemorrhaging, fetal distress. This isn't a small mistake. This is a mistake that can cost a life. Pure negligence. And if this is how they treat women on camera, imagine the shit that they're doing when they're not getting caught.
One thing I'm going to need y'all to start doing is believing Black women. Some of you struggle with Black women. Yeah, like y'all really struggle. Like this video saddens me. But I'm not surprised. And the part that gets me the most is every single person that worked with LaCrista Vaughn that night and watched her provide that care to that patient, or lack thereof, I should state, you should all be reprimanded. Every single one of you. Because I'm not going to sit around as a nurse and watch somebody not help somebody. I cannot stand that. Like, pain is what the patient states it is. Clearly, that human being is in pain. I don't care the race, the color, the gender, nothing. That person is in pain. All those stupid ass questions. Who's your doctor? When is when is the birth? When's the due date? None of that shit matters. And I'm sorry to get on Beyonce's internet and cuss, but when I tell y'all, I'm going to need y'all to believe Black women. I'm going to need y'all to believe Black women in every aspect of life, because I look at her and I think that could be me next year. That could be me in 2 years, 3 years. That could be me. But one thing's for sure, two things for certain. As soon as they would have turned my ass around, turned me away at the emergency door, we would have been going to a different hospital. There wouldn't have been drive to the front. I don't do, no, bro, no. But, ooh, she need to lose her license. Like, y'all need to sue. I need y'all to stop getting on TikTok and posting videos. I need y'all to go lawyer up and sue the hell out of that hospital.
This was something that just annoyed the crap out of her. And when you go through her social media posts, which is all public, by the way, she constantly makes jokes like this right here. And then to top it all off, the hospital itself has horrible reviews. So you would think that with those horrible reviews, they would be on the employees to try and turn their brand around. But instead, you have comments being left like these right here. And the craziest part about this is that before anyone assumes that, okay, these are just spam comments after this event took place, it's not. A lot of these comments are from 5 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 11 months ago. And what's really bad is the fact that she's even been mentioned in a lot of those reviews, and somehow she's still employed there. LaCrista, if you see this, I just think that it is disgusting how you can post stuff like this, and yet you don't own up to it. You're not a good person.
What exactly did you catch when you were watching that viral video? Did it remind you of your mother-in-law? Did it remind you about being a fancy black person, maybe shopping for something, having an accent in the wrong place? Do you think you can spot when someone checks their social status against yours? Let's process it and the feeling of powerlessness and anger that you had watching that video together. So at the now infamous Dallas Regional Medical Center, a young black woman has come in because she is about to give birth. She's actively in labor. The nurse knows this. The universal medical standard of care is that this woman would have been rushed to labor and delivery where she could be monitored. Whatever extra details that they needed to get could have been taken from the person who was accompanying her along the way. This mother in particular had apparently already sent her information ahead. She had established care at this hospital. Here she is, wailing in pain, going nowhere as the nurse stalls. There was zero sense of urgency, and there was absolutely no patient assurance. The nurse keeps mother and baby in the intake room. Now, we could say nurses are used to pain. They've seen hundreds of births. They're not going to freak out, as one might say. But we're not talking about freaking out here. We're talking about someone who knows that the person in front of them has not lived through hundreds of births and who is in pain and in need of medical attention. The nurse is very aware that this woman is frightened and in pain and is about to do one of the hardest things any human being can ever do. And she shows, literally no exaggeration, you could go watch the video, zero empathy or concern or any reaction to the black lady's pain. And what this medical professional is aware of with every minute that she waits is that she's putting the mother and baby at risk of something being missed. She's keeping this woman from the chance to be monitored. She is slowing down and preventing the process for any pain relief or oversight to get in place. If there's an emergency happening, which she can't know in the intake room because, again, no one is monitoring her, these couple of seconds or minutes can be the difference between life or death for the mother and child. On top of the unnecessary delay, the lack of connection and concern being shown here is absolutely adding to the patient's stress, which is also stressing the baby that's about to be born. That stress on a person's nervous system has a weathering effect that can make them more likely to die. The family has reported back that the baby did have complications during and after the birth. The nurse failed to do her job, and she did it in the grand tradition of nurses using their position of power to status check people. This is one more link in the long chain of maternal health crises for Black and Indigenous women in America, not because of their class, not because of other comorbidities, not because of issues they've had with childbirth before, but because of medical negligence and racism. Lack of response is a form of weaponized negligence that looks at a Black woman and goes, she can take it, she's tough. We could also say we saw here malicious compliance, where somebody uses the cover of the process to delay having to service or care for you. They're policing you or punishing you for daring to even come here and ask for services and resources in the first place. People walk around with this idea of who they are and what their space looks like. And when you come into their space as a Black person or a fancy Black person or somebody who needs them to take care of them, there's a level of thinking that I'm too good to be taking care of this person. I am too good in this situation, this store, this shoe, this bag, whatever it is. It's too good for the people who are asking for these services. So I'm going to make it expensive for them to be here. So they use their jobs to covertly assert dominance. They argue, you can't buy this item at the listed price, you must be wrong. They move slowly and they intentionally do not give you the same customer service that they would give everybody else, or in this case, bedside manner. Well, maybe people are having a bad day or they're bad at their job. Here's how most people operate in a society. They are walking around with an internal story of who they are and who other people are. They also have a social hierarchy in their mind. We humans rely on a lot of visual shorthand to fill in ideas about what we're seeing in front of us or who we're seeing in front of us. Our internal hierarchy, that is developed over time by our culture, the people who raised us, the social circles we're in, or the media we consume. History is not just about events that took place, but the cultural memory that developed around them, the meaning and significance we have given to the things that have happened, and the norms we have normalized. You could thank Harriet Washington and her brilliant team for coming up with a comprehensive medical history of America. It's called Medical Apartheid. It explains how a place like the Dallas Regional Medical Center can hire someone like that and think that they don't have a problem. What we learn is that the entire birth and foundation for medical gynecology in America is through and because of enslaved Black female bodies. So many of the quick advancements in gynecology happened because you didn't need to ask for consent on women that you purchased and enslaved. You don't have to waste money on anesthesia or finding new people to keep testing this on because you can just keep testing on the same people you own. It wasn't just Black women. It was a way to continue to make money off of enslaved people who could no longer be squeezed for profit. So if you had someone who'd been injured because of your abusive work tactics, you could sell them for experimentation. This was normal. This is just like a really cruel, bad chapter in a tiny section of American medical history. No, it was its foundation. And it wasn't 4 years before the Civil War and just a couple years after. It was multiple generations. To this day, there are people and families that are bearing the scars of recent decades of medical experimentation and unethical access to Black bodies. People that were tricked. White bodies and white mothers were considered in class as people who felt more pain and were much more delicate. To this day, there are young medical students right now running around with myths and assumptions and biases about Black skin thickness and pain reception. There are a lot of assumptions about what makes a Black person sick. And then we're also dealing with a situation where it's considered bad or woke to look at the interlocking factors that could affect why someone is in the situation that they're in, like ecological racism or pollution. The wider American culture at the time excused and hid this and currently continues to excuse and hide this. Why do you think certain things are getting defunded? This is why with the same money, same healthcare, same hospital, a Black woman could walk into the same situation as a white woman and be 3 times more likely to die giving birth. It's not about genetics, it's about negligence. This slow-moving, dismissive care is procedural violence. Additionally, because enslavement was the economic power engine that could make the American economy the superpower it was, it depended on producing more enslaved people, which meant taking away, and never giving, I should say, reproductive freedom to Black women. To keep it profitable and to keep it cheap, you weren't necessarily worried about the maternal health conditions. You weren't necessarily looking over all of the labor and delivery. This is a huge part of why bodily autonomy is not the state's default position towards women or Black women. It's simply not profitable. So you have this huge group of people that's stewing in old ideas and new recycled ones about how it's Black and brown people who are lazy and taking their resources. It's immigrants who are the reason why there's a housing crisis. There's an infestation of certain kinds of people. Do you think that when those women walk in to give birth, that people are going to necessarily treat them with respect and dignity? Tough and aggressive people who have too many kids, they're not going to get top care. Racism, long after it's used to be a social technology that produces a certain caste system, it becomes an internal form of narcissism, a way to stroke your ego. This white nurse was not going to be seen rushing to take care of a Black lady. Did that Black baby matter with the way she was acting? No. Did that lady's pain matter? Also no. She used, as many people have, her standing to check the other person. It was cruel, it was deliberate, and it was calculated. We tend to think that racist action, sexist action, people who are not welcoming you into their family, that they will announce it, that they will put on a hood, that they will say, I am saying a racist or mean thing, or you are less than me. We tend to think that unless they fully admit right there that I am doing this because I'm racist, that maybe it isn't. But it's not politically or socially expedient to telegraph status in a way that you could get caught. Because the point of this kind of behavior is not to be heard saying it. It is to get a certain outcome, to make you feel a certain way. How do we push back? We articulate what is happening to us. Because like James Baldwin said, once we articulate the situation, we're no longer the victim. We're a threat to that system. We support each other with doulas, birth funds, and looking for ways to fund community scholarships. We do what this grandmother did, which is film and share the story. Nurses at the Dallas Regional Medical Center and beyond might continue to see Black women as pests and problems. We know, like Lucy, Betsy, and Anakra, who are memorialized here, that Black women's bodies were the sites of so many solutions. This profession owes so much to the unimaginable horror and pain that those women endured. People who are watching their research be rolled back, people who have lost their mothers and their wives and their sisters and just human beings to this crisis, know that there's no real moving on from this. But there is moving forward with an awareness of what came before us. What increased digital power we now have to call this out and hold people accountable. The ways we can come together to spot and articulate this behavior in all the different ways it occurs and call it what it is. To the Dallas Regional Medical Center, you have a nurse that is too dangerous to be around Black women. To the rest of us, get Harriet Washington's book and don't be afraid to stay woke. It could literally save your life.
People love to pretend medical racism is some historical artifact, but this is exactly what it looks like today. This is how Black mothers die. Our pain is dismissed, our symptoms are minimized, care is delayed until it's almost too late, and then everyone acts shocked at the maternal mortality statistics. There is absolutely no universe where this is acceptable patient care. Active labor at that stage is an emergency. She should have been immediately transferred to labor and delivery, full stop. And if this is how she was treated before delivery, imagine how she may have been treated postpartum. And that is truly what scares me. I hope that this young lady and her baby are safe, but this cannot keep happening. Black mothers deserve better, and the system knows it. It is long past time to root this out entirely.
And for those who say that this is not about race, it is always about race, especially when it comes to Black people and especially when it comes to Black women in the medical system. The maternal mortality for Black women is 10 times higher than any other demographic in the United States of America. There are still racial biases that assumes that Black people can handle a higher threshold of pain to where we are not tended to, nor giving the proper care or medication to mitigate that pain. This book by Harriet A. Washington called Medical Apartheid literally details the history of medical experimentation on Black Americans in the United States. And also talk about how a lot of gynecological practices and advancements were as a result of testing Black women's bodies without medication or anesthesia. For me, it is not enough that LaCrista Vaughn loses her job. But white folks, it is time for y'all to stand up and stand within the gaps because Black folks have been yelling into the void. It is evident that our screams, our cries, our hurt goes unheard. Y'all have the opportunity to actually advocate and stand up against things that are blatantly wrong and racist. Do something.
Matter of fact, what's everyone's name? What the fuck? If you're unaware, that is the baby of the woman who the nurses made wait in a wheelchair while she was in active labor, actively crowning, water broken, to fill out paperwork. And then they handle her baby like that. I have never called somewhere and complained on someone else's behalf, but that shit just pissed me the fuck.
Getting asked questions with someone whose back is turned to them, with zero support, zero help, and zero information about what the next steps are. And I understand we have to get the patient registered in the system, and I understand that you probably do this 100 times a day and you have people yelling at all times, but you have to see the patient in front of you. You have to see her writhing and screaming because she's clearly in pain, and helping her, the person in front of you. It makes me so upset that this woman, in the most painful and probably scary moments of her life, she was receiving no support from the people who are there only to help people.
You ain't moving fast enough, Pookie. What is you doing? Dallas Regional Medical Hospital, baby, we need a response to this because that was ridiculous. That lady gave birth 12 minutes after she was in that waiting room. And she was sitting there hollering. She was in pain. You didn't give a damn. She didn't give a damn. Y'all. Baby, I would have had to go whoops upside her head. Baby, she would have been all on the floor. Okay? I would have had to go ahead and just wheel my cell phone back. She would have been on the floor. Because ain't nobody got time for all that, baby. I'm about to have a whole baby drop up out my...
This is a follow-up on the video that I posted earlier. So, I was at work. I had no idea of the activity that was going on. My daughter's texting me, calling me. I didn't know what was going on. So finally I get home, they tell me about the video, and a lot of you was asking about a follow-up and to explain the situation. So this is the situation. My daughter went into active labor at home. We took her to the hospital. She called ahead of time, so we know they are expecting us. However, we get there to the emergency room. We watching nurses, putting gloves on, running to the door. They get outside of the door, and I drive a black SUV, and they look at my vehicle, and one of the nurses come up to the window, and she goes, I'm sorry, this is for ambulance only. I said, well, my daughter is in active labor. And she was like, okay. She said, but you're going to have to go to the front. I'm like, I have to drive to the front. And they said, yeah, you have to drive to the front. Okay, another redhead. And so I'm like, so she's in the, you hear, and it was like, yeah, she started bagging up, hit the button, went back inside the building. So I go around to the front. I get out of the car. Again, this girl is in more pain now than she was when we first left the house. And she started saying, I feel pressure, I feel pressure. I said, take deep breaths. I ran in. I said, hey, my daughter's in the car. I went to emergency. They told me I had to come to the front. So the lady was like, what's your daughter's name? Told her Kiara Jones. She gets out some paperwork, start typing in the name. I was like, ma'am, do you have a wheelchair or anything? She's in the car. I need to get her in. Oh, if you check on the other side of those doors where the vending machine's at, there should be a wheelchair out there. There's no wheelchair out there. So she gets up, she walks in the back, and she come to the door with a wheelchair. She said, here you go, ma'am. I said, excuse me, you're not going to come with me? And she was like, no. Oh, okay. So, a police officer was in the lobby. He gets up. He grabbed a wheelchair. He goes out the door with me. He said, come on, I got you. Went out there. She is on hands and knees in the back of the vehicle. And I'm like, oh, shit, what is going on? And then she goes, it's in my ass. And I was like, what? And the guy was like, and she was like, he said, okay. She was like, give me a minute. She could not move. So when that contraction eased, we put her in a wheelchair. He said, you can go park your car, because they, again, had people out there. So I went park my car. It wasn't even 30 seconds. I run back in the building. She's just there with a stack of papers in her hand, screaming that this baby is coming. This baby is coming. I look at the registers behind the window, and they looking at me, and they was like, well, we can't do anything until she signed the papers. Are you fucking kidding me? So I grabbed the papers, and of course, it's all ER bullshit that they have. And I was like, you want her to sign this, and she's in active labor. And they was like, okay. I was like, ma'am, she was supposed to be induced earlier today at 8 o'clock. And they called and told her that they will call her because they didn't have beds. And they would let her know. And no one ever called back. They called back every hour on an hour. And they was like, no, we'll call you back. And then finally, her water break, she called them. They tell her to come in. So why is she signing these papers? We need her in labor and delivery. And I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry. So the charge nurse comes out. And she saw the paper signed. What fucking, are you serious right now? And she closes the door. And then the lady behind the window, at this point, my daughter, scribbled her name on all the papers. We gave it to her. She says, thank you. She walked it around to the charge nurse. She opened up the door. My daughter is literally like having a contraction. And she's just standing there in the door. So we push her into the door. I said, can we get her into labor and delivery? She said, no, we have to fill out all this paperwork. I have to do the paperwork and get her a band before we can send her upstairs. So that was the video that you guys saw that I initially posted. So the next video that has no picture on it was when I was pushing her in and we was at the window because they asked me to move her from the window so they can take care of the guests or, patients that was coming in and out. Do not go to this hospital. This hospital is ghetto as hell. They do not care about black women or their babies. This is crazy. I read about stuff like this all the time. But to see this firsthand, this lady did not care. None of them. It wasn't until we got into labor and delivery where we saw an ounce of care or sympathy for her. Before then, they can care less. She did not care if she gave birth in that wheelchair. That was not her problem or her concern. Hey guys, I'm here with Mom and Baby Cash. They are doing well. He has a doctor's appointment tomorrow at the pediatric center. It's a lot of concerns. They taking tests on him. He still have to go through several other tests down the line because he was born with his eyes open, and due to the stress and trauma that occurred in the triage area, the baby had a bowel movement in Mom, and the fluids was green, and like I said, he born with his eyes open. So they are, taking all that in consideration as well. But he's eating well, sleeping well, looking good. And I was also reading a lot of the comments, and some of you under the impression it was twins. They are not twins. This is daughter with baby Cash, and this is other daughter with baby DJ. They are a month apart. DJ born 10-10 and KJ born 11-11. Thank you again for your support and your concerns, and we will most definitely keep you updated.
But they'll still tell you that racism in healthcare is not a thing, right? We're just making it up. We're too sensitive. Except black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth. But sure, it's all in our heads, right? And, now the internet is doing what the internet does best. They found her name, found her info. People are calling Dallas Regional Medical Center, asking for accountability, asking for her to be fired. Because if you can't even pretend to care during a life or death situation, you shouldn't be anywhere near patients, right? And honestly, Black women, we have to be careful, right? We have to be loud about our symptoms. We have to advocate for ourselves, even when we're bleeding, crying, shaking, or giving birth, because some people simply don't see our pain unless we scream for the whole world to hear it, right? This woman could have lost her child or her own life, and that alone should terrify all of us. But let me know in the comments what you think. Have you ever seen something like this happen? Do you think that the nurse should lose her license? Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can actually see the stories that matter. Credit goes to all original creators. Thank you so much for tapping in when you saw this video. Quick disclaimer, this is not for bullying or violence of any kind. This is just to spread awareness. Thank you so much again for tapping in when you saw this. I appreciate your support and your love. As usual, I'll see you on my next one.